Yeah, every single time you turn on a tap, you're placing your trust in this huge, complex, and, well, totally invisible process. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most critical steps in that whole chain, disinfection. Think of it as the final invisible shield standing between all of us and a world of microscopic threats.
I mean, it's a pretty serious question when you stop and think about it, right? Wastewater is just teeming with life. And believe me, not all of it is friendly. So what is that barrier? What's the technology that lets us safely put that water back into the environment without, causing a massive public health crisis? Well, the answer is a very, very carefully controlled chemical battle.
So before we can even talk about the solution, we have to get a good look at the enemy. We're talking about pathogenic organisms. These are the microscopic hitchhikers in the water that can cause some really serious diseases, everything from cholera to polio.
And what a collection it is. I mean, this is a whole rogues gallery of tiny threats. You've got viruses like hepatitis, bacteria like salmonella, all sorts of fungi, and then these really tough little protozoa like Giardia and Cryptosporidium that have these hard outer shells. The whole point of disinfection? To take out this entire lineup.
And this is where our hero finally enters the story. So after all the other treatment has removed the big stuff, the solids and a lot of the organic gunk, disinfection steps in as that final, absolutely crucial line of defense. It's the one process that's specifically designed to either inactivate or flat out destroy any of those pathogens that are left.
Okay, so it's really important to make a distinction here. We're talking about disinfection, not sterilization. The goal isn't to create perfectly sterile, totally lifeless water. Honestly, that would be incredibly expensive and just not necessary. The goal is much more targeted. We just want to neutralize the specific organisms that could make us sick.
And for decades, the undisputed champion of this entire process has been chlorine. Now, there are other methods out there, like using UV radiation, but chlorine's combination of being low cost and, importantly, its ability to leave a protective residual effect in the water, well, that's made it the most common and trusted method for disinfecting water on a massive scale. So how does this chemical workhorse actually get the job done? It's not as simple as just, dumping some chlorine into the water. There's a really fascinating bit of chemistry at play here that turns this simple element into an absolute powerhouse at destroying pathogens.
Treatment plants usually use chlorine in one of two main forms. On one side, you've got pure chlorine gas. It's incredibly concentrated, super effective. On the other side, you have liquid sodium hypochlorite, which is basically a much stronger, more stable version of the bleach you have at home. The choice between them really boils down to a trade-off. Do you want the raw power of gas or the relative safety of a liquid?
All right, this right here is the heart of the whole thing. The moment chlorine hits the water, it almost instantly reacts to form something called hypochlorous acid, or HCl. And this is the key. The HCl is the real active ingredient. Because it has a neutral charge, it can easily slip right through the cell walls of bacteria and viruses, get inside, and just wreck their internal machinery, rendering them totally harmless.
But as you've probably guessed by now, getting that perfect kill rate is both a science and an art form. Water treatment operators can't just dump a random amount of chlorine in and cross their fingers. Nope, it's a constant, delicate balancing act. And the single most important equation in that entire balancing act is this one: C times T. It's simple but powerful. It means the real disinfection power is a product of the chlorine concentration, that's the C, multiplied by the contact time, the T, that the chlorine has with the water. This one little formula governs pretty much everything an operator does. To really see the C times T thing in action, a good way to think about it is, well, it's kind of like cooking a steak. You can use a really high heat for a short time, or you could use a lower heat for a longer time. Either way, you can end up with a perfectly cooked steak. It's the same here. An operator can use a high dose of chlorine for a short time or a lower dose for a longer time and still get the same effective kill.
And yeah, it gets even more complicated. Operators are constantly juggling these other variables too. For example, colder water slows the whole chemical reaction down. So you'd need a higher C or a longer T. The water's pH is also critical because a lower pH actually makes that key ingredient, the hypochlorous acid, more dominant and way more potent. And then you have any little floating particles, which can act like tiny shields, protecting the microbes from the chlorine. So you've got this incredibly powerful chemical reaction, this delicate balancing act, and you have to remember that the same potency that makes chlorine a microbial assassin also makes it a pretty dangerous guardian. Its power to protect us comes with some very real risks, especially when you're dealing with pure chlorine gas. To really get a handle on the risk, you just have to look at the numbers. First off, chlorine gas is 2.5 times denser than air. What that means is if there's a leak, it doesn't just float away, it sinks. It flows like an invisible river and pools in the lowest possible spaces.
Next, check out this expansion ratio. It's staggering. One little bit of liquid chlorine will expand to 460 times that volume as a gas. A tiny, tiny leak from a cylinder can very quickly fill an entire room with a toxic cloud.
And finally, this is the number that really matters. A concentration of just 0.1% in the air, that's all it takes to be considered immediately dangerous to life or health. It is a potent guardian, for sure, but it's a deadly foe if it ever gets loose. So how in the world do facilities manage a risk like that? Well, with a lot of layers of safety. Operators wear a self-contained breathing apparatus, that's SCBA, anytime they're handling cylinders. They have specialized kits on hand to repair leaks right on the spot. Alarms are constantly sniffing the air for the tiniest trace of gas, and there are even automated scrubber systems designed to contain and neutralize a major release.
But the job still isn't done even after the pathogens are gone. The same chlorine that protects our health can be really harmful to fish and other aquatic life. So, before that treated water gets discharged back into a river or a lake, it goes through one last step: dechlorination. This is where that leftover chlorine is removed, making sure our protector doesn't end up harming the very environment it's returning to.
And this quote from the American Water College just sums it all up perfectly. At the end of the day, all of this crazy chemistry, all these intense safety procedures, they all serve one fundamental purpose: to stop waterborne disease outbreaks and to protect public health on a massive scale. It's really an incredible achievement of public health engineering, isn't it? We've essentially tamed this dangerous chemical to fight an invisible war for us every day. But it makes you wonder, as new, more resistant pathogens start to emerge, what new challenges are we going to face? And what even smarter, maybe even safer solutions will the next generation of engineers have to invent to make sure our invisible shield stays strong?